Hey my dudes, welcome to Bageriet Lördag, the Saturday bakery. You guys, I am so excited for the menu this week. Now, I know I'm always excited for the menu. I'm always looking forward to it. Like, I never have a menu where I'm like, why did I put that on the menu? Like, I love all my menus, but this one, I don't know. There's just something about it. I'm really looking forward to it. For those of you who are new here, I make pastry boxes and every single box is filled with 4 different pastries. People place their orders on Tuesday, they pre-order them, and then they pick them up on Saturday. Here's what's on the menu this week. Brown sugar mini cakes with brown butter, Swiss meringue buttercream, and a fall fruit compote. Oat shortbread thumbprints with caramel and red currants. Almond bars with a honey almond topping, and kanelkringlor, which are Swedish style cinnamon sugar twists. This is gonna be so good. Let's get into it. Wednesdays are the start of my work week, so I always scale out all the ingredients I need for every recipe for the rest of the week. This takes way more time than you think it does, and I like to get it done all in one day so I don't have to think about it later. I just want to get to actually baking and making. I started by scaling the bun dough for the week. As you can see, it's only 2 batches, and that's because this week I only took 45 orders. Last week was my first week being back to self-employment, so I doubled my box numbers. Never say I'm not ambitious, but last week was tough. I like this whole 1 day a week bakery thing because it's fun. I mean, yes, it's a lot of work, but like fun work. Last week, there were several moments where I was like, okay, this is just a slog. Time is not a problem, as I proved to myself last week, but I simply cannot physically hack it. I am too old. I know that sounds crazy to say since I'm only 32, but man, 32 is not 25 in this industry. I think people forget that baking is physical labor. Like, yeah, okay, I'm not out laying train tracks or building a roof. Yeah. Those guys work really hard. But still, baking is physical labor, and 5, almost 6 years post burnout, my body still cannot handle physical overexertion. So all that to say, I decided to go back down to 45 boxes this week. But next week, Bageriet Lördag's very first employee is starting, and so I will go back up to 93-ish boxes. I think having help will really, help me, and I'll be able to get it all done more easily. I mean, that's the whole point of hiring people. At least that's the plan. Who knows what the future holds though. Anyway, after buns, I scaled out for the almond bars and almond topping, for the brown sugar cake and brown butter, Swiss meringue buttercream. And then I made this week's batch of pan release and I topped up the cinnamon sugar for the buns. And then it was time to fold boxes. Wow, 45 goes so much faster than 93. This week felt so easy. I was also listening to my audiobook. I'm listening to Wheel of Time as always. So it went by really quickly. As usual for Thursday, the first thing I got started with was the buns. I popped the first dough on the mixer. By the way, the beige cubes I throw in at the beginning are cubes of fresh yeast. It's really common here in Sweden and what we mostly used in the bakery, so that's what I use at home. I just throw it right in and the dough mixes for so long I don't have to worry about it getting evenly distributed. While the first dough was working, I chopped some almonds. I used what I had left over, which is why they're both with skins and without. Then I cracked all the eggs for the almond cake and I mixed them together and got started on the cake batter. It always looks so weird after all the eggs are in, but comes together when you add the almond flour. I folded in the chopped almonds and then set that to the side because the dough was done. It passed the window pane test, so I put it all on a tray and into the fridge to rest while I started dough number 2. Once that was working, I greased my baking pans and lined them with parchment and greased them again. Half of the almond batter went into each and I spread it out in a nice thin, even layer all the way out to the corners. I popped both trays in the oven and while those were baking, I worked on the honey almond topping for the cakes. In Swedish, this is called toska. Toska is the sticky caramely almond topping and it can go on buns or cakes or all sorts of things. There seems to be no agreement on where the word Tosca comes from. Anyways, it got spread all over the baked off cake and those got put into the oven to bake some more. Then I worked on the butter filling. Last week I messed up a recipe but caught my mistake when I had just mixed the butter and sugar together. I wrote down what I had mixed together, compared that ratio of butter and sugar to the ratio of butter and sugar in the bun butter filling and calculated how much butter I would need to add. Then I added that extra butter to the sugar butter mess to make butter filling for this week. Once that was mixed together, I scaled out what I would would need for today, the extra I will save for next week, and I added cinnamon to today's filling. The almond cakes came out of the oven for a second time, and it was finally bun time. I rolled out the first piece of dough into a large rectangle, plopped on half of the filling, spread it out all the way to the edges, folded the whole piece in 3, re-rolled it, cut the dough into strips, placed them to the side so I could have room to work, then twisted each piece before tying it into a pretzel shape. Once I had done that, the buns got put into the freezer and I started round 2. Every week I get a lot of questions about buns, and I just want to let you guys know that basically any question you have in regards to buns, I've talked about it in a YouTube video. I have a whole explainer on cardamom buns, how the dough works, all the ingredients, and all the different things you can do with the dough. I have a video on freezing, proofing, and storing. I have a video just about how to shape the buns. I have got it all. The last thing I did today was brown butter for tomorrow's brown butter SMBC. I added milk powder as it's the milk solids that get toasted and they're what carry the flavor. So more milk solids equal more flavor. It's mini cake day. As the flavor of the week is brown sugar, I brushed all the molds with regular pan release, which is made of equal parts butter, flour, and oil. If these had been chocolate cakes, I would have made pan release from cocoa powder instead of flour. Anyways, I brushed all of my little molds, then cracked all the eggs for the cake batter and blended them with the immersion blender. That got thrown in my large pot since I don't have a bowl big enough for this batch size. All the rest of the wet ingredients and the brown sugar followed and got mixed together, and then the dries went in. This is the same cake batter I make basically every week, except I replaced all the regular sugar with brown sugar. Then I took my pancake dispenser, sauce gun, whatever you want to call it, up from the basement, and I thought I'd give it a try, but the batter was way too thick. I tried all the different nozzle options and it was just so slow. So I went back to the pitcher I use every single week. The first tray went in the oven and I filled all my molds before jumping right into the Swiss meringue buttercream. I did just 2 batches today. I really have this buttercream down to a science now. At the very end, I threw in the butter I browned yesterday. The SMBC turned out kind of soupy, but I'm not worried. It was really hot in the apartment since I had the oven on and the sun was shining. Our apartment is a freaking greenhouse, so my butter was a bit too warm. But that doesn't matter. The SMBC will set up in the fridge overnight and then I will just re-whip it tomorrow and it'll all be fine. Or at least I hope so. I mean, nothing in this life is guaranteed, so who knows what I'll wake up to tomorrow. But you know, that's the plan at least. After the SMBC was done, I got started on the fall fruit compote. I had some poached quince from a recent recipe test and the poached pears from last week, and I didn't want them to go to waste, so I chopped them as well as a couple apples I had kicking around and threw them all in a pot. I think of the 3 fruits as sisters. I mean, they are in the same family, so I thought compote made with them would be fun. While that was cooking, the cakes had cooled, so I knocked them out of the pans, arranged them on a tray, and wrapped them in plastic wrap. Then I still had to make the thumbprints. The cookie base for these is oat shortbread, so I mixed that together, then laid out all my molds, sprayed them with fat spray, and scooped 2 15-gram scoops into each mold. I don't have a scoop for 30 grams, so 2 15-gram scoops it is. I pressed a deep indent into the middle of each and then baked off the first tray. Well, that was in the oven, the compote was done, so I put that away. The first tray of cookies was baked and the second went into the oven, and once the cookies were cooled, I popped them out of their molds. They came out so easily, it was such a dream. Then I made the caramel filling. This starts out as a dry caramel and then cream and butter are added as well as salt and a teeny tiny bit of cinnamon. This is where the sauce gun came in really handy. It was the perfect way to pour a tablespoon of caramel into each and every thumbprint. I put those on the speed rack to cool, and that was it for Friday. Saturday was pretty vibey, and by that I mean basically no problems, all flow, plenty of time, just rolling through the morning. Axel had pulled the buns the night before, and this week he pulled them a bit earlier, around 11 p.m. instead of the usual midnight or 1 a.m. This extra couple hours of proofing was perfect because the buns were ready to go by the time the oven was warm. Each tray got baked off one at a time, and as they came out of the oven, I slid them off the baking tray onto a speed rack tray and then put them onto the speed rack to cool. While they were cooling, I cut the almond bars. They popped out of the pans really easily this week now that I know the trick. Take them out of the fridge 20 minutes before trying to pop them out. I cut each pan into 24 squares, with each square measuring roughly 4.5 by 4.5 centimeters. Once done with the bars, I went back to the buns. Now, I had not brushed them with egg or simple syrup or anything because they were getting brushed with butter and dipped in cinnamon sugar. The egg would have made the butter not able to soak into the top, and the sugar wouldn't have stuck, and then the simple syrup would have just made these a sticky mess. I brushed a layer of butter on every single tray and then dipped each in sugar. It's best to let the butter, well, not harden on top, but like it cools down and gets less shiny and the sugar sticks more evenly and doesn't get clumpy. I love dipping the buns in sugar. There's just something so fun about like smushing their little faces in there. And I was just so happy with how these turned out. It reminded me a lot of cinnamon toast, you know, the kind your mom used to make you. After buns, it was cake time. I really took my time with these today because I had so much time on my hands. I cut each cake in half and then re-whipped the Swiss meringue buttercream. You always have to do this as the butter in the SMBC cools and sets up. So you have to like re-whip it and warm it up a bit, hence the hair dryer to make it like pipe nicely. I filled my piping bag and the bottom half of each cake got a ring of buttercream. On the tops, I piped a little, like, what would you call that? A star, flower, ruffle kind of guy. And then I made an indent with a hot spoon. Both the bottoms and tops got a dollop of fall fruit compote. And at this point I was getting really excited because they were turning out really, really cute. I stacked all the cakes and then rearranged them so that each tray once again got 24 cakes on each. The last thing I had to do was add fresh red currants to the caramel shortbread thumbprints. The currant really makes all the difference in these, giving them that much needed like hit of acidity. They are so good. Matilda came over and helped pack boxes, and then we loaded up the wagon. Axel took the table and we all headed down to the park. We set up and then customers started arriving. And that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Next week is Cinnamon Bun Day here in Sweden. Yes, that is a real holiday that is a very, very big deal in this country, especially in bakeries. And Cinnamon Bun Day, October 4th, just so happens, very conveniently, to be on a Saturday this year. I love it when things like that work out. So of course, I have planned an all cinnamon bun menu. If you are in Stockholm and would like a box, then follow Bageriet Lördag on Instagram. On Tuesday at noon, the menu will be posted as well as a link to the order form in my stories. You click the link, you fill out the order form, you prepay, and then on Saturday, you come and you pick up your box. Now, if you can't come to Stockholm, but you still want to celebrate Cinnamon Bun Day, don't worry, I got you. Now on Substack for paid subscribers, I have a bundle of my 5 favorite cinnamon bun recipes, and you can find the link to that down below in the description. And that bundle includes the recipe for this week's kanelkringlor. If you don't want to buy a box and you don't want to pay for the Substack subscription, don't worry, I totally understand. And I already have the recipe for kanelbullar, Swedish cinnamon buns, and American cinnamon rolls right here on YouTube, and both of those recipes are available for free. If you want more short form, behind the scenes type of content, you can find me at Cicely.Talone on both Instagram and TikTok. Now, if you would like long form vlogs as well as recipe tutorials like the 2 I already mentioned, you can hit that subscribe button down below. I hope that you have a great week and that I'll see you next week. Hej då!